The manhwa starts where we see a lady and a black-haired man on the dock of a cruise ship. The black-haired man has the lady pinned to a wall and states to her that she should be his. We also learn that it is the month of July in the year 2008. The black-haired man further tells the lady to give him her first dance at the coming-of-age ceremony tonight. He adds that from here on, she should give him all of her first dances at every ball. Upon hearing this statement, the lady is speechless. She then asks the black-haired man if he's kidding and if this is some kind of truth or dare thing. This question makes the black-haired man frown. He also questions the lady about if that is how she answered Jung-soo and Chow Song. This question makes the lady blush. She also becomes surprised. The lady further looks away from the black-haired man and is speechless. The black-haired man then tries to touch the lady's hair with this other hand. However, the lady moves away from the man's hand and tries to avoid it. The man eventually touches her hair and mentions to her not to run away. We also learn that the lady's name is 𝓚𝓲𝓵𝓵𝓮𝓻. The black-haired man adds that she can't run like this forever. Upon hearing this statement, Dai turns towards the black-haired man and states to him that before the ball starts, she'll give them all her answer. We then transition to the next scene where we see that it is the nighttime now. The cruise ship is also rustling because of the big waves crashing into it. We further see Dai, and she is holding onto her slippers while staring at the stars on the dock. She then starts to look down at the water and looks sad. Meanwhile, someone from behind is watching her and starts to approach her. Once the stranger gets close enough to her, Dai hears the stranger and turns around. She also tells the stranger that it's them and that they surprised her. Dai adds that she just made an important decision. Suddenly, the stranger grabs onto Dai. This catches her off guard. As the stranger is struggling to grab her, Dai drops her slippers on the dock. After that, the stranger pushes Dai off the cruise ship. This causes her to fall down into the water. As Dai is falling, she realizes that the girl's coming-of-age ceremony ended for her before it even started. Meanwhile, the stranger notices Dai's slippers and grabs them to hide the evidence. The stranger also starts to walk back inside the cruise ship while fireworks are taking place. We further see Dai in the water, and she has drowned. We then switch to the next scene, where we see that it's now January 2009, and everyone is mourning for the loss of Dai. A blonde-haired man also says, "Why are they putting a coffin here? Dai's just not here for a while. It's not like she'll never come back. They put her favorite dress inside there. She's definitely going to make a fuss when she's back. What do you think? How about we retrieve it?" Upon hearing this statement, a black-haired man states to the blonde-haired man that she's dead. This statement angers the blonde-haired man, and he jumps out of his seat to grab the black-haired man's collar. He also shouts at him and dares him to say that again. The black-haired man tells the blonde-haired man that Dai fell into the sea and disappeared for 6 months. He adds that it's impossible for her to still be alive. This statement angers the blonde-haired man even more, and he punches the black-haired man in the face. He also shouts at the black-haired man and asks him if he even has a conscience. He further mentions to the black-haired man that Dai treated him so well, yet he's acting like this and calls him a bastard. Upon hearing this statement, the black-haired man gets out of his chair and punches the blonde-haired man back. This causes the blonde-haired man to fall to the ground. Suddenly, the cops notice what is happening and start to rush over to the two men. However, the purple-haired man puts his hand out to stop the cops. He also states to the cops to let the two men fight. We then move to the next scene where that it is the winter season, and the black-haired man is walking in the snow. As he's walking in the snow, someone in front of him questions him about if he's cold since he's wearing so little clothing. The man looks closer to see who said this to him and realizes that it's a little girl. He then apologizes to the girl. Upon hearing this statement, the little girl reassures him that it's all right. She also asks him if he just moved here and that they should be friends. The girl further tells the black-haired man that he has to eat more, dress warmer, and then he'll be able to grow up properly. The man agrees with the girl and mentions to her that he'll make sure to do that. The girl states to the man that this is good. All of a sudden, the girl grows up into a lady, and we learn that the little girl was actually Dai's ghost. She also starts to fade away right in front of him. Once she's gone, the black-haired man decides that he'll grow up even when she's not by his side. all the way until he's at an age where she'll never be able to reach. We then fast forward to the future and see that the man is a very successful man. Someone is also conducting an interview with him and says, "The last question is posed on behalf of our female viewers. I heard that though a decade has passed, you've yet to forget your first love that disappeared while you were in high school. You're really devoted to her. It's quite a coincidence. The cruise ship that you were on with your first love departed from Haishan City. We have a beautiful legend here. Those lost in sea here will turn into butterflies and cross the sea. However, the longing of their loved ones will cause the butterfly's wing to become heavier. The more intense the longing, the slower they fly. If they can't cross the sea even after a decade, the butterfly will become a human and return to the mortal realm. You've come back exactly 10 years later. Is it because you know about this legend?" Meanwhile, we see another scene where it is the midsummer of the month of July in the year 2018, and a girl's hand is sticking out of the water. We then see the next scene where we learn that the lady is actually Xia, and she is washed up on shore somehow. Suddenly, Dai starts to get up from the sand. Once she's up, she starts to check her surroundings to figure out where she is. However, she is unable to figure out where she is and starts to wonder about where she is. We further switch back to the scene where we see that the black-haired man is still being interviewed, and the interviewer asks him about if he could see his first love again. What would he say to her? The black-haired man is speechless at first upon hearing this question, but then states to the interviewer that, if he's not wrong, this is an interview about his business, not a talk about his love life. The interviewer tells the black-haired man that this question had the most votes on their poll online, and questions him about if he would care to satisfy everyone's curiosity. The black-haired man mentions to the interviewer that he's not obligated to answer to the public's curiosity towards his personal life. He adds that he only has 2 words for her: no comment. We further see that someone is watching this interview live on TV. The person then closes the TV after hearing the no comment statement made by the black-haired man. The person also slams the TV remote on the ground and shouts out that what kind of joke is this? The person further starts to trample on the TV remote with their heels to break it. As the lady is trampling on the TV remote, she calls someone on her cell phone and questions them about if they saw that program. She also asks them about what are they even asking about. The lady adds that it's all about his first love. She further asks the other person on the line about who cares about her, his actual fiancé. Upon hearing these questions, the other person on the line questions the lady about if this is why she's ranting to them. They also confirm with the lady about how the black-haired man didn't give a clear answer. The lady asks the other person on the line about if they can't tell what he means. She also says, "No comment. He was on the verge of saying that he cared about her a lot. You people have no right to know how much I care for her. He bought a beach and you know what he's using it for?" Upon hearing this statement, the person on the other line tells the lady that of course he cares for her. The person adds that it's not just him. The Xia family cares about her too. The person further questions the lady about, if not, would she be here? We are then introduced to the lady and learn that her name is Jia Xuan. She is 24 years old, Shang Wuju's fiancé, who is the black-haired man. She is also the Xia family's adoptive daughter. Xuan then ends the call with the other person on the line. She also plops down on the couch and is annoyed. All of a sudden, one of the butlers knocks on the door and mentions to her that there's news from Shang. The girl states to the butler to go on. The butler tells Xuan that Shang said he's not returning to the hotel tonight. This statement makes Xuan speechless. The butler then enters the room and questions Xuan if she would like to call him. Xuan reassures the butler that it's fine and that she knows where he is. We then transition to the next scene where we see that Shang is being driven on the coast of the shoreline. As his driver is driving Shang's car, he mentions to Shang that they have passed on the message. He also questions Shang about if they should go to the beach next. This question makes Shang speechless. We then switch to the next scene where we see the past in the year 2008, before the ship set off. We see Dai and Shang looking at a billboard that is showing them the 7 tools that will help them create their dream sandcastle. As they were staring at the billboard, Dai became amazed. She also asked Shang if they should make that sandcastle. Shang confirmed with Dai if she's sure. He added that the sandcastle will disappear once the waves come. Upon hearing this statement, Dai confirmed with him that the sandcastle will get washed away by the waters. She also questioned him about if that isn't enough for them to be happy while they build it. She further asked Shang what that phrase is for this situation. Shang mentioned to Dai that the phrase she's referring to is to focus on the process, not the outcome. Upon hearing this phrase, Dai agreed with Shang that this is the correct phrase. However, Shang stated to her that this is how failures console themselves. This statement made Dai speechless. She then told him to come on. Suddenly, someone called out to Dai and mentioned to her to come and play some beach volleyball with them. Dai stated to the person to give her a moment. She also questioned Shang about if they should go together. Shang shook his head in disagreement. Dai understood and started to walk away from Shang to join the others to play beach volleyball. Once Dai was gone, Shang also turned around and started to walk away from the sandcastle billboard. We then see the present and see that Dai is sitting in front of a sandcastle similar to the billboard from the past with her head down. All of a sudden, someone notices Dai with their flashlight and questions her about who's there. This question startles Dai as she turns around to see who asked her this question. Once she turns around, we learn that it's Xuan. Xuan then asks Dai who is she and why is she on her beach. Dai replies, "Oh, hello there. I didn't come here on purpose. I fell into the sea from a ship and somehow found myself on this beach when I came to. I'm so sorry about this. Could you let me borrow your mobile phone and contact my family?" Upon hearing this response, Xuan is speechless. She then states to Dai that of course she can and invites her to come to her place for now and change into some fresh clothes. As they are walking back to Xuan's car, we learn that 10 years have passed and Dai remained oblivious. The reality she believed in was just a castle of sand existing for a fleeting moment before being destroyed by the waves. We then see the past again, where Xuan is asking one of Shang's employees about if Shang bought a beach at Haishan City. The employee agreed with Xuan and stated to her that it can be used for investments and for taking a vacation at. Upon hearing this statement, Xuan rubbed and crumpled up the paper into a ball. She also threw the paper ball on the ground and said, "What investments or vacation are you talking about? Don't you think I know that? That beach is close to the port where your ship set off 10 years ago, right?" Ha ha ha. So dear Mr. Shang here actually believes these stories. He thinks that if he waits 10 years, that woman will crawl out of the sea. Upon hearing this statement, the employee tried to say something to Xuan. However, Xuan interrupted him and told him to scram. The employee agreed and left Xuan alone in the room. Once Xuan was alone, she told herself that someone who's alive will never be able to beat a dead person. But it's all right since the dead won't come back to life either. She added that she's the one by Shang's side now. We then switch back to the present, where Xuan mentions to Dai that she understands. As they continue walking on the beach, Xuan confirms with Dai if she doesn't remember how she fell off the ship nor what happened on it. Dai agrees with Xuan and states to her that she got on the ship on the 15th of July. She also confirms with Xuan if she's telling her that it's the 18th of July today. Dai further adds that it's been 3 days, but she feels as if she just got on the ship this morning. Upon hearing this statement, Xuan mentions the 3-day statement again to Dai. This makes Dai confused. Suddenly, Xuan pauses and turns around to look at Dai. Once she turns around, she tells Dai that, by the way, they look pretty similar. She adds that she suspects that they might even be long-lost siblings, and that perhaps this is fate. Upon hearing this statement, Dai nervously agrees with Xuan and states to her that she's glad to meet her. This statement makes Xuan laugh, and she tells Dai to come over here. She adds that they can leave once they pass through this door. Xuan further starts thinking about how Dai is glad to have met her. She then takes out a key and opens the fence door. Once it's open, Xuan tells Dai to go on, past the fence door. Dai agrees and starts to walk past the fence door. As she's walking past the door, Xuan starts thinking about how Dai is right and that she's glad too since she's the first person to meet Dai. We then transition to the next scene where we see that Xuan and Dia have made it to the car. Xuan also states to Dai to get in the car. However, Dai stops upon hearing this statement. Xuan notices this and asks Dai what's wrong. Dai tells Xuan that maybe she shouldn't bother her. She also requests Xuan to help her make a police report. She adds that she'll stay here and wait. Suddenly, Dai looks at Xuan and realizes that she's giving her a displeased look. This look scares Dai, and she starts to retreat. Xuan then gives Dai a sinister look and mentions to her that this won't do. She adds that at this rate, someone else is going to come. Xuan further states to her bodyguard to grab Dai. Meanwhile, Dai turns around and starts to run away from them. However, the bodyguard quickly grabs Dai's hand. He also grabs her hair and pushes her down on the sand to stop her from running away. As Dai is laying on the sand, she shouts at the bodyguard to let her go. She also questions him about why is he doing this. The bodyguard ignores Dai and whacks her on the head. This action causes Dai to lose consciousness. The bodyguard then ties up Dai's hands and feet and tosses her into the car. Xuan also gets into the car and states to the bodyguard that this is enough and that they should go. All of a sudden, the bodyguard notices a car approaching them. Once he realizes that it's Shang's car, he tells Xuan that Shang's car is coming. He also asks her if they should leave now. Upon hearing this question, Xuan disagrees with the bodyguard and mentions to him that they don't want Shang to get suspicious. Shang's car then gets closer to Xuan's car and stops right in front of it. Shang also gets out of the car and closes the door behind him. He further stares at the tinted car window and questions Xuan about what is she doing here. Upon hearing this question, Xuan rolls down her window and states to Shang that she was waiting for her fiancé. However, Shang isn't pleased with this statement and tells Xuan that she shouldn't be here. He also mentions to her to answer him. Suddenly, Xuan opens the car door and grabs Shang's hand. As Xuan is getting teary-eyed, she says to Shang, "I know you can't forget her, but it's been 10 years. I beg this of you, Shang Wuju. Stay with me tonight." Upon hearing this statement, Shang moves his hand away from her. He also turns around and states to Xuan that she shouldn't let him see her here again. Shang then gets into his car and quickly speeds away from Xuan. Meanwhile, Xuan is still teary-eyed and is speechless. She then turns towards Di and says to her, "Ha ha! Look, he flees the moment I ask him to stay with me. If there comes a day the fake gets treated with care, that must be because the genuine one can't be found. I'm the only person allowed to stay by his side. That's why I'll need to crush you thoroughly. Sell her off the worst brothel." We then move to the next scene where we see that Dai is fast asleep and she is able to hear someone's voice while sleeping. In her dream, as she's drowning in water, she starts to wonder whose voice is it that she is hearing and who is talking to her. Dai further starts to recall about how Shang pinned her to the wall on the ship and stated to her to be his. Suddenly, someone splashes some water on Dai to wake her up. Once Dai wakes up, she opens her eyes and notices that a shirtless man is filming her with his cell phone, which makes her confused. She then jolts up from the bed in shock and wonders what's going on. Meanwhile, we see a glance of the shirtless man's cell phone and learn that he is live streaming and all of his fans are interested by Dai. Dai further looks down at her dress and realizes that she's soaking wet, which is making her dress transparent. She then uses her hands to quickly cover her body. However, a man wearing a hat grabs her hands and puts them behind her. As he's grabbing her hands, the shirtless man starts to approach her. He also reaches out his hands to try to touch Dai's breasts. Upon Dai noticing this, she starts to struggle and shouts at him to not come over. She adds that he needs to go away. The shirtless man doesn't listen to Dai and instead grabs her dress from the chest area. He further starts to rip the dress. As he's ripping the dress, Dai starts to scream in denial and feels violated. All of a sudden, a woman that's smoking a cigarette tells the shirtless man that this is enough. The shirtless man agrees and stops ripping Dai's dress. The man wearing a hat also agrees with the woman and lets go of Dai's hands. Dai then quickly covers her body by kneeling down on the bed and covering it with her hands. Meanwhile, the woman comes in front of the cell phone camera and mentions to the fans that the child they've got this time was difficult to get. She adds that the show ends here. The woman further states to her fans that the auction starts at 10 o'clock sharp tonight. As always, payment is to be made with bitcoins. Once the broadcast ends, Dai questions the women about what is this place and who is she. Upon hearing this question, the woman exhales her cigarette into Dai's face and replies, "Just think of this place as a brothel. I don't like children that make a fuss. If there's anything you want to say it now." This response makes Dai speechless and teary-eyed. As she continues to cover her body with her hands, she tells the lady that if she lets her contact her family, then she'll give her 5 million. This statement surprises the women and interests her. The woman then says, "So you're the daughter of Xia Corporation. You got into trouble while out at sea, and right after you reached the shore, were sold off by someone. As long as you get to contact your family, I'll be able to get a huge sum of money." Upon hearing this question, Dai states to the woman that regardless of what the person who sent her here said, she will be able to get much more money by helping her. Dai also starts thinking about how she isn't used to saying things like this, and that she is promising a little too much from the get-go. Dai further thinks that this is all right, and believes that once she contacts her mom, she will handle it. The woman then starts to laugh wildly in front of Dai. This reaction surprises Dai. As the woman continues to laugh, she asks Dai if what she's going to say next is that Shang is her fiancé. This question surprises Dai, and she questions the woman about if she knows Shang. She adds that they grew up together. However, before Dai is able to say anything more, the woman interrupts Dai by grabbing her by the hair. As she's holding Dai by the hair, she starts to lead her somewhere. She further kicks open a door and kicks Dai inside the room. Once inside the room, the woman makes Dai kneel in front of a window and puts her face against it. She also mentions to Dai to take a closer look and confirms with her about if she really grew up with Shang. Dai then looks through the window and is shocked. This is because she sees a billboard of Shang, which makes her learn that he is now a young business tycoon. She also figures out that it's the year 2018, which makes her even more confused. The woman then lets go of Dai's hair and throws her on the ground. She also questions Dai if a female dog like her can be childhood friends with a director like Shang. She adds that this is a joke. Meanwhile, as Dai is laying on the floor, she starts to recall all of the things that the voice said to her in her dream. The woman then tells the shirtless man to clean Dai up since they're going to begin the auction. Suddenly, Dai shouts at the women to wait and starts to pull her dress. As she continues to pull the women's dress, Dai mentions to her that she has a better proposal for her. We then transition to the next scene where we see Shang drinking and he's looking out of the window. All of a sudden, someone knocks on his door. Upon hearing the knocks, Shang states to the person to come inside. The person agrees and enters into the room while calling out to Shang. Meanwhile, Shang turns around and sits down in his red chair. Once he is sitting down, he pours some more alcohol into his glass to drink. This action makes Shang's employee nervous and speechless. Shang then asks the lady what did he tell her. The lady is speechless at first, but then tells Shang that he told her not to give anyone the beach keys and not to let anyone other than himself inside the beach. Upon hearing this statement, Shang mentions to the lady that since she knows, she should take care of her resignation. This statement shocks the lady, and she states to Shang that she has been doing everything he wanted. She adds that what happened today is because of Xuan. However, Shang disagrees with the lady and tells her that he doesn't need excuses. Upon hearing this statement, the lady mentions to Shang that she understands. She further bows and rushes out of the room. Once the lady is gone, Shang's brother enters the room and says, "You're so gentle with her, big brother. Aren't you going to invite your little bro in?" We also learn that Shang's little brother's name is Shang Ruby. He is 21 years old and is the second son of the Shang family.
Please make sure to subscribe. Special thanks to all of my Patreon members. Why not watch another manhwa recap on my channel by clicking on this video right here?